Welcome to Road Scholars, and we're here this afternoon looking at a real early example Speedster. We have Cam and myself, Charles, and we're going to just talk a little bit about the vehicle and some things that we're able to point out.
It's almost like C squared.
Exactly. Live from Durham.
C squared.
C squared. This particular example, Cam, did the client bring this to you and say, hey, I want you to address this, or I want you to take a look at this, or was it something you brought to him and said, I think this is such an early example, let's take it up to the next level?
That's a great question. So this is chassis 80005. This is the 5th Speedster ever made. And these were truly, the first 6 cars were very special cars because they were actually based on 52 cabriolets. And this is when Reuter was still trying to nail down the design study. Even though the project had been approved, of course this was Max Hoffman's idea to generate sales in the United States for the returning GIs that were exposed to the racing in Europe, road racing. So this is literally a special coach-built Speedster, the first 6 cars, because again, these were based on 52 cabriolet chassis and body panels. And so they were trying to fine-tune the design cues that they had agreed and nailed down in the proposal for what the Speedster would ultimately be.
So in this particular one, you had a chance to look it over and brought it back here, and then once you got it here in person, it just kind of several things came to light.
So it was really interesting. The customer, we walked through his collection, and I've known about this car for a long time. Of course, Tim Goodrich, who set the bar for restoration, in my opinion, he was one of my mentors, but set the bar for Porsche Concours restoration for many, many years. He restored the first 4 cars. So he restored the first prototype, 1, 2, 3 through 3. And then he restored chassis 1, 2, and 3. So this is chassis 5. And I walked through the collection, we saw this car, and it was so deserving. This car was restored in the late 80s, and it was just a different time in terms of research and execution. So there's some authenticity on the parts, and then there's some overall in terms of what they were performing in restoration work, paint and body work, and detail work. That was just a different standard in that era of time.
Sure, okay. And do you feel that in current Concours and judging, the eye of the judge, that bar's been raised, or is it more a research and what the skill is with metal fabrication and that, or is it more some of both?
It's some of both. Those are the 2 correct touch points of why this car is deserving of restoration. So the judges, because of the information available in books like Steve Heinrich's books, the Type 540 Speedster, there's so much more information, and through the internet, there is so much information about these early cars, and particularly the pre-A cars, which I'm really passionate about.
Let's take a look, let's take a walk around the car and maybe point out some of the things that your trained eye was able to pull out.
Yeah, absolutely. So in general, there's wavy bodywork all over the car, and that's just, again, indicative of not following the tried and true practices of proper blocking the car once the metalwork was completed. Parts things, these are aftermarket Hella lenses that are not the correct originals with the casting of the Hella and the part number on the outside of the lens. Again, there's more up here. This is a traditionally very tough area on 356s to get correct in body work. So you often see cars. This is always a really good telltale sign of looking at a 356 at a car show and seeing how good the shop was, because the way Reuter finished these, there was never any real material or naughtiness, and this is a very difficult area to get clean and smooth in the bodywork stages. There's patchwork. We can see evidence of poor metal patchwork coming up through the body, so we will repair that once we strip this car, media blast it the proper way, and we'll repair that patchwork. But we can see where there literally is a square patch here that's coming up through the paint. It will probably be hard to see through the camera. It's something you really have to get right up on your eyes. And there's solvent pop. There's actually solvent pop in the engine deck lid. There's pinholes in much of the bodywork. And again, for the average layperson, this car looks great. It looks like a stunning car. But the tolerances on the bottom of the door gaps, this is when Reuter was really on top of their game. The infamous 3mm gaps. they were nailing these cars. These were truly still coach-built cars. To some regard, these were coach-built prototype cars. So the 3 millimeter gaps are not current, and we're going to bring those back on this particular vehicle. Other interesting things, the top, everything's going to be redone. This is going to be a full-blown Concours restoration, so we're going to redo everything, take it down to bare metal, address. The knobs have been painted. Of course, the original ivory knobs were not painted, so they were casted pieces. So.
And are there some things on this vehicle that have come to light in more recent years? You mentioned, I think, the turbo rings. Mm-hmm. At the time this was done, were they aware that wasn't spec, but they went anyway with the look?
So again, we have to go, there will be massive research into this car before we even start taking it apart. So we will start confirming these details based on a trip to Germany to the factory archives, and we will disseminate anything that we can before we make any changes, going through the past restorer's notes and seeing why he made some decisions. And there's several things that we know, well, that's dead nuts wrong. Like that, we know a lot about pre-A's because we've done a fair amount of them as a company. But there's also one-off instances because again, this was a prototype. This was the final design study per se as Chassis 5 going into the 800 series build of Speedster numbers.
Right.
So, but this is a different cowl. This is a different shape than a normal Speedster.
And back when this was done, did they actually manufacture this as a coupe and then modify that?
So no, this was an early cab.
Okay.
And you can see that, you can see some of the cab influences of the rear cowls a little taller, just the shape of the front fenders. So this is a pre-A cab that they've modified to get closer to what the Speedster design was ultimately going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. And you can even see, even the side spear, if you go 3/4 view, you can see that's a little wonky and not straight. It's, again, indicative of the bodywork, the quality of the bodywork.
And I see on some of the tape call-outs, the trim glue and some of the adhesive is visible. Is that something that was brought out with hot days over 20 years, or was that
it could have been hot days at shows and golf courses. It could also be indicative it's an interior kit.
Sure.
One of the things I'm really proud of our organization is that we don't use kits. We actually we handcraft our interiors. So Dan Wickett of Hot Rod Construction, amazing guy. He builds Riddler cars. He does all of our interiors. And our cars are amazing because of his interior work. And he's really nuanced into getting the details, because these pre-A interiors and even this pre-A Speedster's interior is different and a little more elaborate than a production 55 or late 54 Speedster. Yeah, but the really amazing thing about this car, Chassis 5, is the color combination. Delivered from the factory in terracotta, because you have to remember, the original idea from Porsche was to deliver in most 55 Speedsters in the 3 colors, red, white, and blue. Speedster blue, red, and white, signal red. So it's pretty amazing to think that this car was delivered in terracotta with this really striking blue leather, not vinyl, but it was ordered with blue leather. So pretty cool.
Very cool.
I think it's going to be stunning when we finish it.
And once this goes in, is this something that's generally 12 month, or is this more of 18 to 24 month to get
I
through
think,
the process?
we always, once you get the paint off, the old cliche, you'll know what you really have, and we'll know. We have a pretty good idea. We did a really in-depth analysis of this car for the restoration analysis, and I think all the pre-A structural pieces are there on the chassis. It has all the correct parts that we can see in the sub-assemblies, but the metalwork, that's always the big difference maker in how the length of the time it's going to take to restore it.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to walk around and just identify this? Is it something where just one afternoon you just kind of walk through it with Danny?
It was a combination of Danny Omasta, our restoration manager and painter. So it was a combination of Gabe Watson, who's our master gold level mechanic, and so it was a twofold. I bring in the research and the kind of knowledge of pre-A geekness, and the 3 of us went over the car and spent literally 2 days identifying, doing this analysis of what's right, what's wrong, what are the challenges, and then giving an in-depth report to the customer,
right,
so they can make an educated decision. Well, this really justifies moving forward with restoration, and it will be a product that he can be proud of and will last the test of time. You know, again, Tim Goodrich, who set the bar so high, one of my mentors, one of the people we've emulated as a business, his restorations still look good. His cars that he did 30 years ago still look impeccable today. And to me, that is always what we're aiming for. The test of time is how good will our cars look 20, 30 years from now.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So when you deliver news like this, obviously every ownership experience is different.
Mm-hmm.
Is the owner kind of excited about where you're going to take it? Is there a little bit of like, oh, really? Okay, I'm going to turn a little bit and ask this question, but then ultimately I feel comfortable making this decision to go back to this?
Correct. I think it was one of those situations where we can provide analysis, an in-depth report, really highlighting the challenges of every component of the car, whether it's improper parts, whether or not they're not authentic, they're bad reproductions, whether it's a paint and bodywork issue, whether it's a corrosion issue, metalwork issue, or the overall finish and authenticity research of the car. So once I think someone like this customer appreciated seeing that detailed report, then they feel comfortable saying, okay, this isn't just as simple as a repaint. We're trying to go for top level, trying to recreate what this car looked like when it left the factory. And we're actually going to have orange peel in the paint. Oh my God, can you imagine? Whoa. So, you know, I think the paradigm shift is happening in the Concours world, and over restoration, which I've always been a big component not to do over restoration. And as a restorer, you're always walking the fine line of not over restoring and then, you know, executing authentic details.
Okay.
Yeah, but paint wins shows. Everyone knows paint and bodywork wins shows.
Definitely. So do you think we'll see this maybe in 2022 on the lawn at Amelia or Pebble Beach, or is it still undecided?
I think it's undecided. You know, we a long time ago stopped trying to do those deadline restorations of this is going to be ready for Pebble Beach, you know, next year or 2 years from now. That's just, we've done it, we've executed. It was a fun experiment, but it really stresses out the shop. It's not fun.
Definitely.
So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to hit on, or?
Yeah, but what do you think from a design element?
I mean, I love it. I love that, you know, the color. Like you said, traditionally they're red, white, and blue, and to pull this out, I'm just thinking about when this came out, as it's rolling down the production. Probably guys are bumping elbows on who gets to paint this.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, exactly.
And there's a lot of energy that's going on at Porsche and where this is going in Reuter. So just really neat.
And these are really some of my favorite years of Porsche production leading up, you know, and shortly after this, because shortly after this was the Continental idea, another Hoffman idea of trying to provide a name, a nomenclature to a 356 rather than just a number designation.
Right.
And of course we all know the Ford Motor Company ended up sending a threatening letter to Porsche to say cease and desist with the Continental name.
Right.
But, you know, the Continental being the last kind of limited production, 55 series cars being the last really, truly handmade team cars going through Porsche, and because production skyrocketed in 56 with the T1 program. It's amazing when this is dialed in and polished, if you're at a traditional Cars and Coffee, or even a level above that, how when you walk around, it's amazing. And then when you pull out with your discerning eye the challenges and where it needs to go, it's really eye-opening. Yeah,
so
that's cool.
Definitely it's an education for me. I really appreciate the time you're spending with us.
Thanks.